5 years had passed since the death of Hannah Lee, and the galaxy had been completely transformed. The Vorthok Empire was nothing more than a memory. While humanity had become the dominant power among the stars, the former imperial worlds were now free and protected under human guidance. Admiral Cho Seung-min stood before the memorial statue of Hannah Lee on the rebuilt New Busan colony. The grizzled commander had become the first human galactic protector tasked with ensuring that no species would ever again threaten innocent children, the statue showed. Hannah, as she had lived, a smiling 8-year-old girl with her arms outstretched, as if welcoming a friend. The inscription below read simply, "In memory of Hannah, whose death awakened humanity's true nature." The memorial had become a place of pilgrimage for beings from across the galaxy. The colony that had been evacuated in fear was now thriving again, with humans and aliens living together in peace. The children who played in the same forests where Hannah had died were protected by the sacrifice of billions who had fought to ensure their safety. Dr. Yoon Soo-jin had returned to peaceful research after the war, but her weapons remained ready in case they were needed again. The gentle scientist, who had become humanity's most dangerous weapon maker, now focused on healing the wounds that the conflict had created. Former imperial worlds had been given to the species that had been enslaved by the Vorthok. These newly free peoples governed themselves but looked to humanity for protection and guidance. The galaxy had learned to respect human power, but also human justice. Captain Lee Minho now served as the governor of the former imperial capital world, which had been renamed New Seoul. The young officer who had captured Emperor Vorthok Prime was responsible for ensuring that the lessons of the war were never forgotten. The planet had been terraformed to support human life and was now home to refugees from dozens of species who had suffered under imperial rule. The former center of galactic tyranny had become a symbol of hope and freedom. Engineer Bae Tae-hoon continued his work building ships, but now they were designed for exploration and trade rather than war. The skilled technician had helped convert human civilization to a war footing and then back to peace while maintaining the ability to defend themselves. Human fleet remained the most powerful military force in the galaxy, but it was used to protect the weak rather than conquer new territory. The ships that had destroyed the Empire now served as guardians of galactic peace. Crix, the young Vorthok soldier who had been saved by Hannah, had become the last of his kind to work alongside humans. The alien warrior served as a living reminder of the price of underestimating human fury and the power of human kindness. The former imperial soldier had written a book about his experiences with Hannah, and the war that followed. His testimony helped the galaxy understand how the death of one innocent child had changed everything. Admiral Nam Ji-woo now served as supreme commander of human forces and was responsible for maintaining peace across the galaxy. The young officer who had volunteered for the first revenge mission had become one of the most respected leaders in known space. The human military had been reduced in size, but remained ready to respond to any threat against innocent life. The galaxy had learned that humans would tolerate almost anything except harm to their children. General Huang In-ho had established the Galactic Justice Council, which tried war criminals and protected the rights of all species. The veteran strategist who had planned the Empire's destruction now worked to prevent future conflicts. The council operated from the rebuilt New Busan colony, where Hannah's memorial reminded everyone of the price of injustice. The galaxy had learned that some crimes would never be forgotten or forgiven. Yoon Soo-jin had developed new medical technologies that could heal wounds and cure diseases that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. The scientist who had created weapons of mass destruction now used her knowledge to save lives. The nanobots that had once been designed to kill now worked to heal, while the computer viruses that had destroyed imperial technology were repurposed to improve communication networks across the galaxy. The former imperial species that had surrendered were scattered across the galaxy as refugees living under human protection. They were not persecuted, but neither were they allowed to rebuild their military power. New generation of human children grew up knowing that they were protected by the sacrifice of those who had died avenging Hannah Lee. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of threatening human. Young Captain Park Jae-soon commanded a new exploration ship that was mapping unknown regions of the galaxy. The young officer represented the return of human curiosity and hope after the years of war and revenge. The ship carried both human crew and aliens from dozens of species working together to explore the universe. The cooperation would have been impossible during the Empire, but was now normal under human protection. The memorial on New Busan had become the center of an annual ceremony where representatives from every species came to honor
Anna's
memory. The innocent child who had died trying to save an alien friend had become a symbol of hope. For the entire galaxy, Admiral Cho Seung-min gave the same speech each year, reminding the galaxy that peace was possible, but only if everyone remembered the price of harming the innocent. The old soldier had become a statesman, but his eyes still burned with the memory of a dead child. The ceremony always ended with the reading of Hannah's last words about her sad alien friend who had tried to warn her. The simple statement had become a rallying cry for justice and compassion across the Clau-CA. Young alien ambassador asked Admiral Cho how humanity had become so powerful so quickly. The old soldier looked at Hannah's memorial and gave the same answer he had given for 5 years. We learned that some things are worth fighting for and some prices are too high to pay. The Empire learned that lesson too late, but the galaxy remembers what happens when humans are pushed beyond their limits. The ambassador nodded, understanding that the peaceful humans around him were the same species that had destroyed the mightiest empire in galactic history. The death of one child had revealed the true nature of humanity. The galaxy was at peace, but it was a peace built on the foundation of absolute deterrence. No species would ever again make the mistake of threatening human children because they had seen what happened to those who did. New Order was not built on fear alone, but on the memory of innocence lost and the determination to protect the innocent, the child who had died trying to save. Her alien friend had become the guardian angel of the galaxy. The story of Hannah Lee would be told for generations as a reminder that even the smallest act of kindness could change the universe. Her death had awakened something in humanity that would protect the innocent for all time. The galaxy had learned that humans' greatest strength was not their technology or military might, but their willingness to sacrifice everything for those they loved. The memorial on New Busan stood as eternal proof that some things were worth any price. Admiral Cho Seung-min watched the sunset over the rebuilt colony and knew that Hannah would have been proud of what her sacrifice had accomplished. The innocent child who had died in her father's arms had become the catalyst for a better universe. The galaxy was safe under human protection and would remain so as long as anyone remembered the price of harming the innocent. The death of one child had ensured that no other would suffer the same fate. The New Order was complete, and the galaxy was at peace, but humanity remained vigilant, knowing that the price of freedom was eternal watchfulness. The memory of Hannah Lee would never fade, and neither would the promise to protect the innocent. The Vorthok Empire was dying, and Emperor Vorthok Prime knew it. The ancient ruler stood in his crumbling palace watching reports of rebellions spreading across every world in his domain. The 1,000-year-old civilization was collapsing in months. Because humans had shown the galaxy that the Empire could be defeated, Daryun Sujin arrived at the imperial capital world of Vorthok Prime, leading a team of scientists who had developed the ultimate weapon. The gentle researcher who had once created tools for peace now carried plans for destroying an entire planet's atmosphere. The scientists had spent weeks studying captured imperial technology and discovered that the aliens had made their world dependent on artificial atmospheric processors. If these systems were destroyed, the planet would become uninhabitable within. Ours Admiral Nam Ji-woo, now promoted after his heroic actions at Earth, led the human fleet that surrounded the imperial capital. The young officer had risen quickly through the ranks because of his courage and dedication to avenging Hannah's death. The human fleet was composed of ships built from the wreckage of imperial vessels, combined with advanced human technology. The result was a force more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each ship carried weapons that could crack planets and crews that would never surrender. On the capital world, chaos reigned as imperial forces tried to maintain order, while rebellions broke out in every city. The subject species that had been enslaved for centuries finally saw their chance for freedom and took revenge on their former oppressors. The Emperor called for reinforcements from across the galaxy, but found that his communications networks had been corrupted by Dr. Yoon's virus. Imperial commanders could no longer coordinate their forces while their own technology turned against them. General Wang In-ho coordinated the final assault from his command ship while watching real-time footage of the battle. The veteran strategist had spent his entire career preparing for this moment when humanity would prove itself the dominant species in the four. Galaxy. The human attack began with kinetic bombardment of the imperial capital cities, the relativistic projectiles. Struck with the force of nuclear weapons, turning the centers of alien civilization into smoking craters. The empire that had ruled for 1,000 years was being erased from history. Captain Lee Min-ho led a ground assault on the imperial palace. To capture the emperor alive, the young soldier had volunteered for the mission because he wanted to look into the eyes of the being who had ordered the death of an innocent child. The palace was defended by the empire's elite guard, but human weapons made short work of even the most heavily armored aliens. The soldiers who had seemed invincible to other species fell like wheat before the fury of humans seeking revenge. Emperor Vorthok Prime watched his guards die one by one as human forces advanced. Through his palace, the ancient ruler finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. The death of one human child had led to the destruction of the greatest galactic power in history. June activated her atmospheric weapon and watched as the imperial capital world's air began to change. The artificial processors that maintained the planet's environment started failing one by one. The world that had been the center of galactic civilization would soon be uninhabitable. The remaining imperial forces surrendered, but mercy was not in the human vocabulary anymore. The species that had ruled the galaxy through fear and cruelty now faced the same fate they had imposed on others. Admiral Nam Giwu accepted the surrender of the imperial fleet, but made it clear that there would be no forgiveness for the death of Hannah Lee. The empire would be completely destroyed, and its people scattered across the galaxy as refugees. The emperor was brought before human commanders in chains. The first time in 1,000 years that a Vorthok ruler had been captured alive. He tried to negotiate for his people's survival, but the humans had no interest in deals. Captain Lee Min-ho looked into the emperor's eyes and saw only a tired old creature who had lived too long. The alien ruler, who had seemed godlike to his subjects, was revealed as just another mortal being who had made a terrible mistake. The emperor asked why humans were so different from other species and why they fought with such fury. Admiral Nam Gigwu showed him footage of Hannah's death and explained that humans would do anything to protect their children. The alien ruler watched the video of the innocent child dying while trying to save his soldier and finally understood. What his people had awakened humans were not just another species to be conquered, they were something far more dangerous. The execution of Emperor Vorthok Prime was broadcast across the galaxy as a warning to any species that might threaten human children. The ancient ruler faced his death with dignity, but his final words were a warning about the terrible power that humans possessed. Imperial capital world was abandoned as its atmosphere became poisonous to all life. The planet that had been the center of galactic civilization for a millennium became a dead monument to the price of underestimating human Furikrex. The young Vorthok soldier, who had been saved by Nasuseya, Hannah became one of the few members of his species to survive the human revenge. The alien warrior dedicated his life to preserving the memory of the child, whose death had changed everything. The remaining imperial worlds were given to the species that had been enslaved by the empire. The former subjects of the Vorthok became the rulers of their own destinies, while humans established themselves as the new Galactic. Powered. Dor-Yun Sujin looked at the weapon she had created and felt a mixture of pride and horror. The gentle scientist had become the architect of genocide, but she knew that it was necessary to protect future human children from suffering. Hannah's faith. The galaxy learned to fear humans, but also to respect them. The new rulers did not seek to enslave other species like the Empire had done. Simply wanted to ensure that no one would ever again make the mistake of harming human children. General Wang In-ho was appointed as the first human governor of the former imperial territory. The veteran strategist ruled with an iron fist, but also with justice, protecting the weak and punishing those who would prey on the innocent. The war crimes trials began as surviving imperial officials were judged for their roles in the attack on New Busan. The galaxy watched as humans demonstrated that they believed in justice as much as revenge. The testimony of Krex became crucial evidence in the trials, as he described how the Empire had planned to destroy human colonies. The alien warrior who had been saved by a child's kindness now helped ensure that justice was served. The trials revealed the full extent of Imperial cruelty and showed the galaxy why humans had responded with such fury. The death of one innocent child had been the final straw that broke the patience of an entire species admiral. Namji Wu was promoted to Supreme Commander of Human Forces and tasked with maintaining peace in the galaxy. The young officer, who had started as a simple captain, was now one of the most powerful beings in known space. The reckoning was complete. As the empire that had killed Hannah Lee was completely destroyed, the galaxy had learned that some prices were too high to pay and that humans would never forgive those who harmed their children, the innocent child who had died trying to save Anne. Alien Friend had become the catalyst for the greatest change in galactic history. Her death had awakened something in humanity that would reshape the universe forever. Captain Nam Ji-woo stood on the bridge of his converted cargo ship, watching the Vorthok supply depot grow larger on the main screen. The military facility looked massive and well defended with energy shields and weapon batteries that could destroy normal attackers, but the Empire had never faced weapons like the ones humans had developed. The human strike force consisted of 12 ships that looked like harmless cargo vessels, but carried enough firepower to level cities. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who had seen the footage of Hannah's death and wanted revenge against the Empire. The crew members wore pictures of the innocent child on their uniforms as a reminder of why they were fighting. Nam Ji-woo gave the order to attack, and his ships fired their kinetic weapons at the Imperial depot. The projectiles moved so fast that they appeared as streaks of light crossing the darkness of space. The Empire defenders had no time to react as the relativistic rounds tore through their shields like paper. The battle lasted only minutes as human weapons destroyed everything in their path. The supply depot exploded in a massive fireball that could be seen from neighboring star systems. Not a single human ship was damaged during the attack. Because the Empire had no weapons that could match human technology, Imperial commanders at the depot sent frantic messages to their superiors reporting that they were under attack by an unknown enemy with impossible weapons. The messages cut off abruptly as the facility was completely destroyed, leaving no survivors to explain what had happened. General Huang In-ho watched the attack from Earth Defense Command and smiled grimly at the results. The veteran strategist had planned this first strike to send a message to the Empire that humans were not the weak species they appeared to be. The destruction of the supply depot was just the beginning. The general had studied the Empire for years and understood that their power came from controlling vast supply networks that connected thousands of worlds. The alien civilization had grown dependent on these trade routes and would collapse if they were cut off from their resources. Dr. Yoon Soo-jin unveiled her latest creation to the military leadership, a swarm of nanobots that could target Vorthok biology. The microscopic weapons were designed to be invisible and undetectable until they began killing their targets. The gentle scientist had become humanity's most dangerous weapon maker. The nanobots could be deployed in water supplies, air systems, or through direct contact with Imperial personnel. Once they entered a Vorthok body, they would slowly destroy vital organs while appearing to be a natural disease. The Empire would have no defense against weapons they could not see or understand. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other human strike forces launched similar attacks against Imperial installations. The pattern was always the same. Human ships would appear without warning, destroy their targets completely, and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. Captain Lee Dong-wook led an attack on an Imperial communication hub that connected dozens of star systems. The young pilot had volunteered for the mission because he wanted to honor his sister's memory by striking back at the Empire. His ship carried a new type of weapon that could disrupt electronic systems. The communication hub was destroyed so thoroughly that Imperial commanders lost contact with entire sectors of their empire. The attack created chaos as local governors could no longer receive orders from the central government. While military units could not coordinate their movements, engineer Bei Tae-han completed conversion of more civilian ships into weapons of war. The skilled technician had developed new designs that made human vessels out nearly invisible to Imperial sensors. The converted ships looked like asteroids or space debris until they revealed their true nature by Opening fire, the Empire began to panic as reports flooded in from across the galaxy about mysterious attacks on their facilities. Military commanders demanded explanations, but no one could understand how humans had developed such advanced weapons, or why they were targeting civilian infrastructure in Borthok. Prime called an emergency meeting of his war council to discuss the human threat. The ancient ruler had expected the primitive species to surrender after losing one colony, but instead, they had launched a coordinated campaign of destruction across Imperial space. The War Council reviewed footage of the attacks and were horrified by the effectiveness of human weapons. The Empire had superior numbers and controlled thousands of worlds, but their technology seemed primitive compared to what humans had developed in Secret Admiral. Chosuman studied intelligence reports about Imperial troop movements and realized that the Empire was preparing for conventional warfare. The alien commanders expected humans to fight according to traditional military rules, but they had no idea what was really coming, though. Admiral ordered human forces to target Imperial civilian populations, as well as military installations. The decision was controversial but necessary to show the Empire that humans would use any means necessary to win. The death of one innocent child had removed all moral restraints from human warfare. Krex, the young Vorthok soldier who had been saved by Hannah, now found himself in an impossible position. He had been rescued by human kindness, but belonged to the species that had killed his savior. The alien warrior began secretly providing information to human intelligence networks. The information from Krex proved invaluable as it revealed the locations of critical Imperial facilities and the movement patterns of their fleets. Human strike forces used this intelligence to target the most important enemy installations while avoiding heavily defended areas. STRU and deployed her nanobots against several Imperial colonies and watched as the alien populations began dying from mysterious illnesses. The Vorthok medical system had no cure for weapons that attacked them at the cellular level. While appearing to be natural diseases, the Empire tried to respond by sending fleets to attack human colonies. But they found empty space where thriving settlements had been. The human population had been evacuated to hidden locations while their worlds were converted into elaborate traps. Imperial fleets that approached human territory found themselves under attack by weapons. Hidden in asteroid fields and space stations that looked abandoned, the Empire lost dozens of ships to human ambushes, while failing to locate any major human settlements. General Wang Inho watched as his strategy unfolded perfectly across the galaxy. The Empire was losing control of their territory as supply lines were cut and communication networks destroyed. The alien civilization was collapsing from within as humans attacked the foundations of their power. The hunt had begun, and humans were the predators, while the mighty Galactic Empire had become the prey. The death of Hannah Lee was being avenged by the systematic destruction of everything the Empire had built over 1,000 years of conquest. Captain Namjiwoo prepared for his next mission. Knowing that each successful attack brought humanity closer to total victory, the young officer carried a picture of the innocent child who had died trying to save an alien friend and promised that her sacrifice would not be forgotten. The Empire was learning that killing a human child was the worst mistake they could have made. The species that had appeared weak and peaceful was revealing their true nature as the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Emperor Vorthok Prime stood in his war room surrounded by holographic displays showing the collapse of his empire. The ancient ruler had watched his civilization dominate the galaxy for over 1,000 years, but now everything was falling apart. Because of one dead human child, the emperor made a decision that would seal his empire's fate. He ordered the Grand Fleet to assemble for a direct attack on Earth itself. Though the massive armada consisted of over 10,000 ships carrying enough firepower to destroy entire star systems, War Master Threx, the most feared military commander in the galaxy, would lead the assault. War Master Threx was a giant among his people, standing nearly 3 meters tall with scars covering his reptilian hide. He had conquered dozens of worlds for the Empire and never lost a battle. The alien commander was confident that overwhelming force would crush human resistance once and for all. Grand Fleet began moving toward Earth while Imperial propaganda broadcasts declared that humanity would be wiped from the galaxy. The Emperor wanted to make an example of the species that had dared to challenge Vorthok supremacy, but he had no idea what awaited his forces. Admiral Cho Sung-min watched the approaching Imperial fleet through long-range sensors and smiled grimly. The human commander had spent months preparing for this moment, and Earth was ready for the greatest battle in galactic history. The planet looked peaceful from space, but its surface was covered with weapon installations that could destroy incoming ships. The moon had been converted into a massive military base, while the asteroid belt had been seeded with self-replicating mines that would attack any enemy vessel. Doryun Sujin activated her latest creation, a network of orbital defense platforms that surrounded Earth like a deadly web. Each platform carried weapons that could fire projectiles at near light speed while being protected by shields that could withstand direct hits from Imperial dreadnoughts. The first wave of Imperial ships entered the solar system and immediately came under attack from human defenses. Hidden weapons fired from seemingly empty space, while asteroid mines swarmed toward enemy vessels. The Empire had expected to find a defenseless world, but instead faced the most heavily fortified planet in the galaxy. War Master Threx watched in horror as his advanced scouts were destroyed before they could report back to the main fleet. The human weapons were unlike anything he had seen before, moving too fast to track and hitting with incredible precision. Main battle began when the Imperial fleet reached Earth orbit. Space around the planet became filled with energy blasts and explosions. As 10,000 alien ships faced humanity's entire defensive network, the battle was so intense that it could be seen from other star systems. Captain Lee Dong-wook led a squadron of human fighters in a desperate attack on the Imperial flagship. The young pilot had volunteered for the most dangerous mission because he wanted to avenge his friend Hannah, who had died on New Busan. His ship was small and fast, but carried enough explosives to damage even the largest enemy vessel. The human fighters moved through the battle zone like deadly insects swarming around the massive Imperial ships. They used suicide tactics that terrified the alien crews, who had never faced opponents willing to die for their cause. Engineer Bae-Tae-hein commanded a group of converted mining ships that had been loaded with nuclear weapons. The civilian engineer had become a warrior overnight, driven by the memory of an innocent child who had died trying to help an alien friend. The mining ships approached the Imperial fleet while disguised as space debris. When they got close enough, they revealed their true nature and rammed into enemy dreadnoughts. The explosions destroyed several of the Empire's most powerful vessels while inspiring human forces. Across the battlefield, War Master Threx found himself fighting a battle unlike any he had experienced before. Human tactics made no sense, as they seemed more interested in inflicting damage than preserving their own lives. The alien commander had conquered many species, but none had fought with such desperate fury. The battle lasted 3 days and nights as human defenses held against the overwhelming Imperial assault. The space around Earth became a graveyard of destroyed ships from both sides, but the human planet remained unconquered. On the third day, Captain Lee Dong-wook made his final attack on the Imperial flagship. His fighter had been badly damaged, but he managed to reach the enemy command center. The young pilot crashed his ship directly into the bridge, killing War Master Threx and crippling the Imperial fleet. The death of their supreme commander broke the will of the Imperial forces, and they began to retreat in disorder. The grand fleet that had been assembled to destroy humanity was now fleeing for their lives, while human forces pursued them across the solar system. Admiral Cho Sung-min watched the retreating enemy ships and knew that the Empire was finished. The defeat at Earth would inspire rebellions across the galaxy, as subject species realized that the Vorthok were not invincible. News of the human victory spread faster than Imperial communications could carry. Orders to stop the broadcast worlds that had been under Imperial rule for centuries began to rebel as their populations learned that the mighty Empire had been defeated by a single human planet. Doryun Sujin activated her final weapon, a computer virus that could spread through the Empire's own communication networks. Every time an Imperial ship or facility connected to their data system, it became infected with a program that slowly corrupted their technology. The virus spread across the galaxy like wildfire, turning the Empire's own technology against them. Ships lost navigation systems, while orbital platforms fired on their own forces. the civilization that had ruled through superior technology found their most advanced systems, becoming their downfall. Engineer Beta Hyen began converting the wreckage of Imperial ships into new human vessels. The alien technology was primitive compared to human weapons, but it could be useful for building a fleet large enough to hunt down the remaining Imperial forces. The Emperor received reports of rebellions breaking out across his empire as subject species rose up against their oppressors. The 1,000-year-old civilization was collapsing faster than anyone had believed possible. Prex, the young Vorthok soldier who had been saved by Hannah, watched the destruction of his people's empire with mixed feelings. He had provided intelligence that helped humans win the battle, but seeing his own species face extinction made him question his choices. Alien Warrior decided that he would continue helping humans because Hannah had shown him that kindness was more powerful than cruelty. The innocent child who had died trying to save him had taught him that some things were worth fighting for. General Wang and Ho coordinated the pursuit of fleeing Imperial forces across the galaxy. Human fleets followed the retreating aliens to their home worlds, where they would face the final judgment for killing an innocent child. The Empire had escalated the conflict by attacking Earth directly, but they had only succeeded in proving that humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The death of one child had awakened a fury that would not be satisfied until the entire Vorthok civilization was destroyed. Captain Nam Wu led a human fleet toward the Imperial capital. Knowing that the final battle was approaching, the young officer carried a picture of Hannah Lee and promised that her death would be avenged by the complete destruction of the Empire that had killed her. The galaxy was about to witness the end of the oldest civilization in known space and the rise of humanity as the new dominant power. The Vorthok Empire had made their deadliest mistake when they killed a human child, and now they would pay the ultimate price. Admiral Cho Sung-min stood in his office on Earth, staring at the holographic display that showed the final moments of Hannah Lee's life. The grizzled military commander had seen many battles and witnessed countless deaths, but nothing had prepared him for watching an innocent child die while trying to protect an alien who had warned her about danger. Then footage played again and again, showing the small girl falling to the ground as her father caught her in his arms. Her last words about her sad alien friend echoed through the Admiral's mind, and something fundamental changed inside him. The peaceful approach to galactic relations was over, and humanity needed to prepare for warrior. Yoon Soo-jin received an emergency call to report to Earth Defense Command immediately. The brilliant scientist had spent her career developing peaceful technologies to help humanity explore space. But now she was being asked to create weapons of mass destruction. The gentle researcher who had always believed in diplomatic solutions found herself faced with a terrible choice when Dr. Yoon arrived at the command center. She saw hundreds of military officers and scientists working frantically at computer terminals. The atmosphere was tense and angry as everyone had seen the footage of Hannah's death. The child had become a symbol of human innocence destroyed by alien cruelty. Admiral Cho called a meeting of Earth's top military and scientific leaders. The room fell silent as he began to speak about humanity's response to the tragedy on New Busan. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with cold fury that made everyone understand that everything had changed. The Admiral explained that the Vorthok Empire had made a critical mistake by killing a human child. They thought that humans would respond like other species with formal protests and small military actions, but the Empire did not understand human nature and the terrible things humans could do when their children were threatened. Nam Ju-woo volunteered for the first revenge mission against the Empire. The young officer had graduated from the academy only months before, but his determination impressed everyone in the room. His sister had been friends with Hannah through the colonial communication network, and the pain in his eyes reflected the anger of billions of humans. Yoon was given unlimited resources and authority to develop new weapon systems. The scientist who had once created tools for terraforming planets now focused on creating devices that could destroy entire star systems. She worked day and night, driven by the image of Hannah dying while trying to protect her alien friend. News of Hannah's death spread across human space faster than any government communication system. Families on distant colonies watched the footage and wept for the innocent child. People who had never met Hannah felt personal grief as if she had been their own daughter. The death of one child had united humanity in a way that no political leader ever could engineer. Baytayan received orders to convert all civilian spacecraft into weapons of war. The skilled technician had been building transport ships to carry colonists to new worlds, but now he was retrofitting them with military equipment. His team worked around the clock, installing weapon systems and armor plating on vessels that were never meant for combat within. Days every human shipyard was producing warships instead of exploration vessels. Factories that had been making farming equipment were now creating ammunition and military supplies. The entire human industrial complex shifted to war production with an efficiency that amazed even the military commanders. The transformation of human society happened almost overnight. Peaceful scientists became weapons researchers, while civilian engineers designed new types of military hardware. Children in schools learned about the brave girl who died trying to save her alien friend and swore that they would never let such a thing happen again. Yoon made her first breakthrough when she discovered that human technology was far more advanced than anyone had realized. Centuries of conflict and competition on Earth had forced humans to constantly improve their weapons and defenses. The peaceful appearance of human colonies had hidden the true potential of their military capabilities. Scientists developed kinetic weapons that could fire projectiles at nearly the speed of light. These weapons could penetrate any known type of armor and destroy targets from enormous distances. The Empire had never faced anything like human military technology because they had grown comfortable with their dominance. Admiral Cho studied intelligence reports about the Vorthok Empire and realized that their strength came from controlling other species rather than their own. Military power. The Empire had ruled for 1,000 years, but they had become lazy and overconfident. They expected other species to surrender without serious resistance. Captain Nam Gi-woo led the first test of the new weapon systems against abandoned asteroids in the outer solar system. The results exceeded all expectations, as human kinetic weapons completely destroyed targets that would have required massive amounts of conventional explosives. The young officer smiled grimly, knowing that the Empire would soon face the same destruction. Engineer Bay completed the first batch of converted warships and was amazed by their capabilities. The vessels looked like normal cargo ships, but carried enough firepower to destroy Imperial cruisers. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who had seen the footage of Hannah's death and wanted revenge against the Empire. The military planners developed a strategy that would target the Empire's infrastructure rather than fighting their fleets directly. Human forces would attack supply lines, communication networks, and civilian targets to cripple the Empire's ability to wage war. The Empire wanted to play by traditional rules, but humans had learned that rules were for those who could afford mercy. Dr. Yoon created her most terrible weapon when she developed nanobots designed to target Vorthok biology. These microscopic machines could be deployed in water systems or through direct contact and would slowly poison any member of the Empire species. The gentle scientist had become a creator of genocide. News reports from across human space showed the same scene repeating everywhere. Peaceful colonies were being converted into military bases, while civilian populations demanded immediate action against the Empire. The death of one innocent child had transformed humanity into a species focused entirely on revenge. The first human strike force prepared to launch under Captain Nam Ji-woo's command. The young officer knew that his mission would begin a war that would reshape the entire galaxy. He looked at a picture of Hannah and promised that her death would not be forgotten. Admiral Cho received reports that the Empire was mobilizing its own forces in response to human military preparations. The alien commanders expected humans to follow standard military protocols and fight honorable battles, but they had no idea what was coming for them. The transformation was complete as Earth became the center of the largest military buildup in human history. Every resource was directed toward one goal: making the Vorthok Empire pay for killing an innocent child. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans were pushed to far. Dr. Yoon looked at her latest weapons designs and felt a mixture of pride and horror at what she had created. The gentle scientist had become humanity's most dangerous weapon designer, driven by the memory of a small girl who had died trying to protect an alien friend. The Empire had awakened something terrible in humanity, and now they would face the consequences of their mistake. the death of Hannah Lee would soon become the catalyst for the greatest war in galactic history. The morning sun shone bright over New Busan colony as 8-year-old Lee Hannah ran through the green fields behind her home. Her small feet moved quickly through the tall grass, while she chased colorful butterflies that danced in the warm air. The colony world looked peaceful and beautiful with its blue sky and rolling hills that reminded everyone of old. Earth Hannah lived in a small house with her parents Kim Dae-ho and Park Mina. Her father worked as a terraforming engineer, which meant he helped make the planet better for humans to live on. He would come home each evening with dirt on his hands and stories about the machines that changed the air and soil. Her mother Park Mina taught young children at the local school and always had a gentle smile for everyone in the colony. New Busan was humanity's first successful home outside the solar system. It took many years to build and represented hope for all humans who dreamed of living among the stars. The colony had about 50,000 people living in small towns connected by roads and communication systems. Everyone knew each other and children alike. Hannah could play safely anywhere far away in the dark reaches of space. The Galactic Empire watched human expansion with growing worry. The Empire was ruled by the Vorthok, species who looked like giant lizards with sharp teeth and cruel eyes. They had controlled the galaxy for over 1,000 years and did not want any new species to challenge their power emperor. Vorthok Prime sat on his throne made of black metal and precious stones. He studied reports about human colonies spreading to new worlds. His advisors told him that humans were different from other species they had conquered. Humans seemed to adapt quickly to new environments, and their technology improved fast. The emperor decided that humanity must be stopped before they became too strong. He called his war council together and gave orders to prepare for an attack on human settlements. The plan was simple: destroy a few human colonies and force the rest to submit to imperial rule. The emperor thought humans would surrender easily like most other species had done. Meanwhile, on New Busan, Hannah discovered something amazing while playing. In the forest near her home, she found a crashed alien ship half buried under fallen trees and covered with strange metal that seemed to change colors. The ship was small and badly damaged, with smoke coming from broken parts inside the ship. Hannah found a wounded alien soldier. The creature looked like a lizard, but walked on 2 legs like a human. He was young and scared, with blood on his scaly skin. His name was Krex, and he belonged to the Orthoc Empire. The crash had hurt him badly, and he could barely move. Most children would have run away screaming, but Hannah was different. She saw that the alien was in pain and needed help. Her parents had taught her to be kind to all living things, even if they looked strange. She brought Krex water from a nearby stream and some food from her lunchbox. Krex could not believe what was happening. No species had ever shown kindness to the Vorthok before. They were feared across the galaxy as cruel conquerors, yet this small human child was helping him without asking for anything in return. He tried to speak, but his translator was broken, so he could only make growling sounds. After day, Hannah visited the crashed ship. She brought bandages that she stole from her mother's medical kit, and more food and water. She even brought some of her favorite books and tried to read to Krex, even though he could not understand the words. The alien soldier began to heal and started to trust the human child. As a weak Krex managed to fix his translator enough to speak simple words. He asked Hannah why she helped him, and she answered that her parents taught her to help anyone who was hurt. Krex had never met anyone like this human child in his culture. Only the strong survived, and weakness was punished. As Krex grew stronger, he began to understand human language better. He learned that Hannah loved to draw pictures of animals, and that she wanted to be a doctor when she grew up. She told him about her friends at school and how they played games together. Krex realized that human children were innocent and pure. Unlike the adult humans his people feared. One day, Krex received a message on his emergency communicator. The Imperial fleet was coming to destroy New Busan colony. The attack would happen in 3 days and nothing would survive. Krex felt horrible knowing that his people would kill the kind child who had saved his life. Krex told Hannah that she and her family must leave the planet immediately. He tried to explain that his people were coming and that they would destroy everything. Hannah did not understand why anyone would want to hurt the peaceful colony, but she promised to tell her parents. When Hannah ran home and told her parents about the alien friend, they thought she was playing pretend games. Children often created imaginary friends, and her parents assumed this was normal. But Hannah insisted that Krex was real and that danger was coming. Deho decided to investigate and followed his daughter to the crash site. When he saw the alien soldier, he immediately called colony security. The peaceful terraforming engineer had never seen a real alien before and was frightened. Krex tried to warn him about the coming attack, but the humans. Them colony security forces arrived quickly with weapons ready. They surrounded the crashed ship and demanded that Krex surrender. The alien soldier raised his hands to show he meant no harm, but the security team was nervous and scared. One of them had his finger on the trigger ready to fire. Hannah ran between the security forces and Krex, trying to protect her alien friend. She shouted that he was good and that he had warned them about danger, but in the confusion and fear of security officers, weapon went off. The energy blast was meant for Krex, but it struck the small human child instead. Hannah fell to the ground with a terrible wound in her chest. Her father, Kim Deho, caught her as she collapsed. The little girl looked up at him with fading eyes and whispered about her sad alien friend who had tried to warn them. She died in her father's arms while Krex watched in horror. Alien soldier who had been saved by human kindness now witnessed the death of his savior. He cried out in his own language, begging for forgiveness, but it was too late. The innocent child who had shown him what goodness meant was gone. Forever news of Hannah's death spread quickly through the colony, and then across all human space the story of the 8-year-old girl who died trying to protect an alien friend touched something deep in the human heart. Colonial administrators reported the incident to Earth and other human worlds within hours. The footage of Hannah's death was broadcast on every human communication network. Billions of people watched as the small girl fell and heard her final words about helping her alien friend. The image of her father holding her broken body became burned into human memory. The Vorthok Imperial fleet arrived at New Busan 3 days later. As Krex had warned, they expected to find a defenseless colony ready for conquest. Instead, they found abandoned buildings and empty streets. The humans had evacuated, but they left behind something else: anger and a promise of revenge. Emperor Vorthok Prime received reports that the human colony had been cleared without resistance. His military commanders thought this proved that humans were weak and would surrender easily, but they did not understand what they had really accomplished. The death of one innocent child had awakened something terrible in humanity. The Empire had made the deadliest mistake in galactic history. They had killed a human child, and now they would learn what that meant. The peaceful species that had spread hope among the stars was about to show the galaxy what humans were really capable of. When pushed too far, Krex remained on New Busan. After the Imperial fleet left, he stood by the small grave where Hannah was buried and swore that he would find a way to honor her memory. The alien soldier who had been saved by human kindness now understood that his people had started a war they could never win.